Let me take you back, not to a battlefield, not to a temple, but to a time when justice wore a mask of horror, when punishment didn't just mean pain, it meant making a spectacle of suffering. This is not the Greece you read about in school. This is the part they left out. Behind the statues and philosophy, behind the democracy and poets, was a world obsessed with revenge, shame, and power. The kind of place where a man could be cooked alive inside a bronze statue, just for the crowd to enjoy the sound of his screams. This is a true story of ancient Greece's most disgusting punishments ever recorded. And once you hear them, you'll never see that marble paradise the same way again. Our story begins in Sicily, in a city called Acragas. The ruler there is Phalaris, a name feared by all who lived under him. One day, a craftsman named Paralos arrives at his court. He's a clever man, ambitious, maybe too ambitious. He has created something he calls a gift for justice. What he rolls in is a sculpture, beautiful in a way, a full-size bull made completely out of bronze, hollow on the inside. Phalaris stares at it. Paralos explains, "This, my lord, is no ordinary statue. This is a new way to execute the worst of criminals. You lock them inside, light a fire beneath, and as the victim screams, the sound travels through pipes and whistles, making them sound like the bellow of a great, angry bull." Phalaris smiles and says, "Show me." Paralos proudly agrees. But when the time comes to demonstrate, the tyrant orders his guards to seize the inventor. "Let him be the first," he says. And so, Paralos is dragged, screaming, into the very bull he built. The fire is lit. His skin begins to blister. The bronze heats fast. His screams, just as promised, come out like the roar of a beast. The crowd watches, silent, then cheering. The brazen bull was born, and it would be used again and again to make an example of anyone who crossed the line. Innocent or guilty, it didn't matter. Once inside the bull, there was no mercy, only fire. About 500 miles away, in Athens, a man named Draco was busy writing the law. And when I say writing the law, I don't mean rules for jaywalking. I mean the kind of laws that turn a city into a nightmare. Draco believed in control. He believed in fear. And so he created a legal code that punished everything with death. Steal an apple? Death. Talk back to an official? Death. Owe someone a few coins and can't pay? That's right. Death. The people said Draco's laws were written not in ink but in blood. And they weren't exaggerating. Historians believe his laws were the harshest ever written in the Greek world. No trial by peers. No second chances. Just a cold hand of the law. Swift and merciless. And here's the twist. Draco didn't last. Eventually, the Athenians realized they'd gone too far. They scrapped most of his laws and replaced them with something a little less murderous. But the damage was done. His name lived on. Even today, when someone says a rule is draconian, they're echoing a legacy of fear that began over 2,600 years ago. Socrates. You probably know that name. The man who asked questions no one dared to ask. The man who taught Plato, who inspired Aristotle, who helped build Western thought as we know it. But Socrates didn't die of old age. He was sentenced to death by the very democracy he believed in. Here's how it happened. Athens was changing. They'd just lost a brutal war. The city was wounded, nervous, angry. And here was Socrates, walking around, asking the youth of Athens to think for themselves, to question everything, even the gods. The people grew uneasy. They accused him of corrupting the minds of the young, of disrespecting the city's religion. The jury found him guilty. And the punishment? A cup full of poison, hemlock. Socrates could have begged. He could have run. He could have escaped. His friends offered to help. But he didn't. He drank the poison calmly. With his students sitting nearby, he said, "The hour of departure has arrived, and we go our ways. I to die and you to live. Which is better? Only the gods know." And then his body shut down. That was the civilized death Athens gave its greatest thinker. A slow, cold end, one sip at a time. Now we enter the realm of humiliation. There's a punishment from ancient Athens that is so strange, so disturbing. It sounds like a sick joke. It's called raphanidosis. If you were found guilty of certain sexual offenses, like adultery or inappropriate behavior, this was your fate. They would take a large radish and forcefully insert it into your rectum. Yes, a radish, not in private, not behind closed doors. This was a public punishment. The entire point was to shame you in front of everyone. The goal wasn't just pain, it was complete humiliation. We don't know how often it happened. Some scholars believe it may have been rare. Others think it was symbolic. But the fact that it existed at all tells you how obsessed the Greeks were with control, especially over the body, over honor, and over shame. You didn't just lose your freedom. You lost your dignity. Now let me tell you about a punishment where no blood was spilled. No fire. No poison. No beating. Just one word: ostracism. In ancient Athens, if someone seemed too powerful, too wealthy, too influential, the people could remove them. Every year, they held a vote. Citizens would write the name of someone they wanted exiled on a broken piece of pottery, called an ostracon. If enough people wrote your name, you were gone. Not killed, not jailed, but exiled from Athens for 10 years. No appeal, no explanation. You packed your things and left. Your home? Gone. Your family? Left behind. Your name? Now a whisper. Some of the smartest and most successful men in Athens were ostracized, not for crimes, but for being unpopular. This was democracy with a knife hidden behind its back, and the blade cut deep. Now picture this. Athens is sick. Literally, a plague is spreading. People are dying. Panic fills the streets. The priests say the gods are angry. The people say someone must be punished. So they choose a pharmakos. Not a killer, not a criminal, just someone, usually poor, a beggar, a slave. This person becomes the scapegoat. They are dressed in strange clothes, paraded through the city, hit, mocked, sometimes stoned. Then they are thrown out of the city, or in darker versions, killed. The idea? One life in exchange for many, one sacrifice to make the gods happy again. The logic is cruel. But to the Greeks, it was divine math. This wasn't justice. It was desperation. And someone always had to pay. Some punishments didn't end in death. They began with it. In Greek mythology, the worst offenders didn't just die. They were sent to Tartarus, a deep, dark pit beneath the underworld. There, they were tortured forever. Let's meet a few of them. Sisyphus, a clever king who cheated death twice. His punishment? Push a giant boulder up a hill. Every time he reached the top, it rolled back down. Forever. Tantalus. He served his own son to the gods at a feast. Disgusting. His punishment? Stand in water with fruit above him. Both forever just out of reach. Exile. He tried to seduce Hera, the queen of the gods. Zeus punished him by binding him to a spinning, burning wheel for eternity. These weren't just myths. They were warnings. Tales told to children and citizens alike. Disobey the gods and you'll suffer forever. They weren't messing around. It wasn't common in Athens. But in certain Greek colonies, especially those influenced later by Roman customs, there were rumors of punishment by animal execution. This wasn't metaphor. It was death by beast. Sometimes, criminals were thrown into pits with starved dogs. Other times, into an arena with wild lions or bears. And these weren't private events. Crowds gathered. Children watched. It was punishment and entertainment rolled into one. Some were chained. Some were left to run. The result was always the same. Blood. Imagine the fear. Knowing your body was about to be torn apart, piece by piece, for the sake of a spectacle. It wasn't about justice. It was about making an example. And making sure everyone remembered what they saw. They always did. In Sparta, strength was everything. Weakness? That was punished. From birth, Spartan boys were inspected. If a child seemed frail or deformed, he could be left to die on a mountainside. But that's just the beginning. If you were a coward in battle, or even accused of it, you might be stripped of your citizenship, your hair shaved, your seat at public meals taken away. You were invisible, a ghost in your own city. And if a man was convicted of certain crimes, His punishment wasn't just exile or pain. It was forced infertility. In some cases, men had their reproductive rights taken, by knife or by law. Because to the Spartans, your bloodline was either strong or worthless. If you shamed the city, your children didn't deserve to exist. They weren't just punishing the man. They were erasing his future. Not all punishment needed death. Sometimes pain was a sentence. Visible pain. In some Greek states, thieves had their hands cut off. Other crimes were met with beatings, branding, or slicing off body parts, ears, noses, tongues. The more public the punishment, the more powerful the message. One story tells a man who insulted a judge. His tongue was nailed to a board. Another, a servant caught lying was forced to carry hot coals in his hands until he collapsed. And if you think these were only for the poor, think again. Greek justice didn't always care about your status. If your punishment made the city look strong, you were fair game. Justice wasn't blind. It just didn't blink. Here's something truly terrifying. In some parts of Greece, if you committed treason, not only were you punished, your family was too. Your wife could be enslaved, your children banished or executed, your home destroyed, your name erased from records. Forever. This kind of collective punishment was called aidimia, the loss of honor, rights, and legacy. It didn't just kill a man. It killed his bloodline. To the Greeks, honor was everything. Losing it wasn't just personal. It was political. Imagine knowing that if you made one wrong move, your kids could die for it. That was the weight of Greek justice. That was a fear. So now we've seen it. Not the marble temples. Not the golden statues. The truth. Ancient Greece gave us philosophy, democracy, science, art. But it also gave us the brazen bull, radish punishments, forced exile, poison cups, screaming scapegoats, animal executions, broken families, bodies burned, cut, and humiliated, all in the name of justice. Why? Because control was everything. And to keep control, they used fear, pain, shame. It's easy to worship the ancient world, but behind every column there are shadows. And in those shadows, you find the stories no one tells in school. So next time you hear about how civilized ancient Greece was, remember this. They taught the world how to think, but they also taught the world how to hurt. If this video opened your eyes, hit the like button. If you want more stories like this, history that's raw, real, and unapologetically dark, subscribe to the channel. We got so much more to uncover. Until next time, stay curious, stay human, and don't forget the past isn't gone. It's just buried, waiting